thanks to the recent wave of popularity that Viking history is riding on, there has never been more airplay devoted to Viking battles, often with Vikings dressed like a gang of bikers. One of the most visually striking elements in the battles depicted on screen is the portrayal of Viking warriors with painted faces. But how much of this image is rooted in historical fact, and how much is the invention of the costume departments? Let's have a look. While the dramatization in shows like Vikings makes for thrilling entertainment and often delivers climactic endings, we historians frequently criticize such series for their lack of historical accuracy. Well, not necessarily accuracy, but believability. Some inaccuracies work much better than others. Although the stories are set in the early medieval period and feature characters from Viking societies, some of whom were real historical figures like Athelstan or Rollo or Harold Fairhair, many aspects of the episodes, particularly the battles, lean heavily into fictional embellishment. Although the Norse had developed the runic writing system, the so-called Younger Futhark, by the time of the Lindisfarne raid in 793, it wasn't until Christianity's influence in the later Viking Age that they began recording their own histories, and particularly in Iceland. Consequently, much of our written knowledge about the Viking Age comes from their enemies and victims, narratives that are often steeped in bias. Even so, some texts do provide intriguing glimpses into the lives of Viking warriors. One notable account comes from Ibn Fadlan, a 10th century Arab diplomat, ethnographer and scholar who encountered the Rus, a group connected to Viking societies, along the Volga River in what is now Russia. His writings, though steeped in bias and a clear sense of cultural superiority, still offer compelling ethnographic details. For instance, Ibn Fadlan described the Rus as being heavily tattooed with intricate patterns looking like trees. Despite his dismissive tone toward their way of life, he curiously praised their physical attributes, creating a peculiar dynamic in his account that feels part critical and part admiring. However, Ibn Fadlan did not describe the Rus in battle, nor did he mention painted or tattooed faces being used in combat for some sort of psychological warfare. His account mostly deals with a funerary ritual, a very compelling one actually, also describing the sacrifice of a young girl in a very sexualized and violent manner. While it is possible that some Rus may have tattooed their faces or engaged in such practices, there is no conclusive evidence that these tattoos, or face painting, were tied to warfare. Moreover, the Rus would have been a diverse group that included not only Scandinavians. They developed dynamic contacts to Slavs, Balts, Turkic tribes, Khazars, Bulgars and others in this very complex region, making it unlikely that their customs fully represented those of the broader Norse world. Beyond the written records, which often sought to demonize the heathen Vikings, archaeology offers another perspective. A wealth of battlefield artifacts from the Viking Age has been unearthed, along with graves ranging from simple burials to richly adorned sites meant to prepare the deceased for the afterlife. Yet despite these discoveries, there remains no definitive evidence that Viking warriors painted their faces as portrayed in modern media. Excavations of battlefields and settlements have revealed no pigments or materials that could be linked to body paint. The absence of evidence doesn't entirely rule out the possibility of face painting among Viking warriors, but it does suggest that if the practice existed, it was likely not widespread. Thus, the iconic image of painted Viking faces, as seen on screen, owes much more to creative imagination than historical reality. What we do have is again from another written source, an Andalusian merchant, but he does not describe face painting, but rather some kind of makeup worn by the people of Hedeby, in the southern end of the Viking world, nowadays in northern Germany. Ibrahim ibn Yaqub al-Tartushi makes a comment on the artificial makeup for the eyes. And when they use it, beauty never fades, on the contrary, it increases in men and women as well. So at least in this town, but again, a trade town, so lots of cultural exchange happening, Vikings seem to have used some kind of kohl eyeliner. Byzantine authors, who also have some very interesting remarks about the Norse they encountered, do not mention anything similar. Konstantinos Porphyrogenitus, for example, wrote a lengthy account about a Varangian ceremony at the imperial court involving some kind of animalistic dances with two groups of warriors growling and shouting Yule, potential reference to a berserker gang ritual, a battle frenzy, but nothing about face paint. All in all, while body art may have been practiced by some Norse societies, there is limited direct evidence of the specific designs or their cultural meanings. Often movie depictions borrow heavily from modern imagination, creating an inaccurate and very problematic representation. This misrepresentation can trivialize or distort historical traditions. Many depictions of Viking tattoos and face paint in movies borrow aesthetics from other indigenous or ancient cultures, such as Celtic knotwork, Native American patterns, or even Polynesian designs. This blending of unrelated elements strips the borrowed elements of their original cultural meaning and attributes them inaccurately to Viking culture. It is very much within the definition of cultural appropriation. And there is really no need for it, because the Vikings were interesting enough without it. What I mean is that by inventing or exaggerating practices like face painting or tattoos without the proper context, filmmakers risk erasing the cultural and spiritual significance that body art holds for other cultures. For example, tattoos in Polynesian or Native American cultures often have deep spiritual or ceremonial meanings, which may not align with the fabricated Viking depictions in media. For them, it is an essential marker of identity. Appropriation occurs when elements of one culture are used out of context, particularly by dominant cultures, without understanding or respecting their significance. When movies misappropriate elements that are not genuinely Viking, they may inadvertently disrespect the source cultures while falsely attributing the elements to Norse heritage. And it is problematic with regard to Vikings themselves. The emphasis on face paint and tattoos as hallmarks of Viking identity can perpetuate a barbarian stereotype, which is a lazy trope oversimplifying them. This narrative often aligns with older views of history that paint non-classical European societies as primitive, overlooking the sophistication of Norse achievements in exploration, trade, art, or law. Or it can be used to amplify the savage, hypermasculine image that has been associated with them since time immemorial, with the same nefarious effect. So, until we actually find something concrete to build on, no one is prohibiting our imagination from running wild, but let's just be a little more aware of the potential cultural implications. This was Irina, thanks a lot for watching, and if you enjoyed this piece, smash the subscribe button for much more on the Vikings and the myths surrounding them. If you want to know, for example, more about the importance of Viking hair and how much combs can tell us about ancient Scandinavia, check out my video on the topic linked right here. Thanks a lot, and till next time.